Ease up your tension and close your eyes. Yes, just like that. Make yourself as comfortable as possible so that your mind feels itself comfortable too. It tickles, no? But just wait. Now, fade away without a trace. Feel the water and air during the different seasons, inside a different dream in a different body, forgetting and remembering everything. You've already become something. I don't know what it is, but I've already left for somewhere long ago. Please don't look for me. I will no longer be able to teach you. But Mr. A, please, I want to be part of the cookie dough experiment. I'm all ready. I can prove it. The particles scattered across the floor are sparkling in the light. Kill me, please. Kill me, A. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just as you commanded, I have written up the job application form for our corporation. The reception is good. Everyone thinks that it's a new employment method that does not concentrate on just one's abilities. The number of applicants is projected to meet the initial calculation. The experiments are almost complete. We will soon hire people according to the order of priority you stated. I've also arranged a meeting with Time Track. These are the people that control the that are letting me fast forward and pause time. In case you did not remember what Malkuth's research that let you fast forward said, like, at the beginning of the Let's Play. Are you thinking about those who have left you? Gebura will be back soon. Manager, if it's alright with you, could you pass my words along? Gebura, she's strangely obsessed with suppression, wouldn't you say? Any casualty to employees during the suppression process, she entirely disregards it. Lady Angela is perfectly aware, but she conveniently turns a blind eye to it. Gebura is great at handling the abnormalities when they breach, as if she was born for this job. So I suppose a few extra dead employees is considered a reasonable trade-off. But you see, as a manager, you should know that massacring abnormalities is not our only priority. Well, I don't know if Gebura will listen to you, but I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a go. I saw Chesed leaving. What nonsense do you ramble on about this time? Be honest with me. I can see everything. Let me warn you. Don't act as if you know everything. I've been here for a long time. I've seen much more than you have. Experiment subject 0934 will be running a simple test before we administer the chemicals. Ah, Gebura, the machine with a soul, a wonderful creation of Lobotomy Corporation. What does it mean to have a soul? It means one may truly have worth. It's the center of faith our venerable Lord A belongs in. I participate in this experiment because I trust him. I don't know if I have a soul. If I'm dissembled, will there be a soul inside me? Well, it can easily be determined just by talking with you. A soul cannot be seen, but it can be felt. I will be reborn as I confront my own soul. Mankind in the world will be changed soon. Trust in A, for he is our savior, which will lead us all. So you're Miss Gebura. I heard a lot about you from Christopher. They say you have a real soul. Our venerable A really is remarkable. Don't pay attention to those who disrespect you. They do not know your true worth. Oh, meet Gilly, our daughter. She is kind and sweet, just like you. Does this child also have a soul, then? Of course. A soul is something every living creature has. It's the essence of us all, yet not known to many. This world only believes in things that can be seen with the eye. It's a sad belief that will eventually lead everyone to destruction. Miss Angela, is that a monster? That is what we call an abnormality, Gebura. How is it different from monsters? Monsters are in themselves repulsive, terrible creatures at the core and start of their existence. However, abnormalities originate from humans. Then why does that abnormality have Mr. Christopher's watch, and why does it make sounds as if it were mimicking Mr. Christopher's voice? You see, Gebura, that's because abnormalities originated from them. It is not like they materialize at all of a sudden or come into existence from nowhere. Yeah, that's probably pretty important information to know all of a sudden. Do abnormalities eat humans? Is it mimicking Mr. Christopher like that because it devoured him? I don't understand. That is a complicated thing to explain, Gebura. What's certain is that this did not happen because of someone's vice or malice, and that the shape you perceive as a monster certainly carries the will of the man you called Christopher. Excuse me, Tifereth, why does experiment log include a step where Miss Isabella is sent to chamber DO-101? Why should we place her anywhere near that horrific monster? I don't know, Gebura. You know she isn't known for explaining the purpose of every experiment to us. I think I heard that it's to rigorously determine the loss of humanity, but I don't really get what it means. That's definitely going to end up hurting Miss Isabel. I should tell Miss Angela to stop it. Gebura, maybe you should just keep quiet about it. I've seen other machines question her orders, and Miss Angela would reset it of us if we disobeyed her. Please, if you are feeling anger, I suggest that you rather embrace that anger and move on. Wouldn't that be better than to lose your memory and exist as a lifeless puppet, being ashamed of the soul you got to bear? What do you think the ending to that story is? Where did Christopher's wife and his daughter, Gilly, disappear to? I won't ever know either. Hard to say if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but the experiment was not under my responsibility. All I know is that that old blanket Gilly had was the only thing to come out of that monster's chamber. Most people wouldn't even talk to us, since machines weren't worth putting their minds to. But Christopher and Isabel, they told me I was worthy of something. They looked past my exterior and saw what was inside of me, something I wasn't even aware of. Those monsters were obligated to call abnormalities have killed many people since then. And yet those things never die. It's not fair. Why do I have to treat them nicely? Don't pay any heed to the employees in front of you. When an abnormality shows up, their lives will be the least of your worries. Since it's clear that those monsters feel pain, I'll dish out as much pain as possible. That's the only reason why I'm standing here. Don't ever patronize me again. So yeah. Suppress 3 different LF abnormalities. This means that even if we had no LF abnormality, we still wouldn't be able to complete this mission because it's 3 different. Except we actually can complete this mission because of the birds. You see, the special event that the birds cause counts as 5 LF abnormalities for the purpose of this mission, because it spawns 5 different entities that are all LF. We will be attempting to do the bird mission today. I have never done this before, because this is literally my second playthrough, and I never got Judgment Bird in my first one. Yeah. Hopefully I can do it, because I do have a pretty solid plan, I think. We're taking the rabbits next, as I stated earlier. They're not going to help with fighting the bird event, but it'll be nice to have them. Welcome back to Lobotomy Corp. We're doing the bird event to accomplish Gebura's LF mission. I've never done it before, as I said earlier, and I'm a bit nervous about actually doing it. But before we do that, we do have one new abnormality to show off, so I will do that first. So I did reconsider having a bio for the shelter / the new abnormality today, just because I ended up deciding, since I literally completely ignore it for today, it wouldn't really be worth explaining what it does. We'll just save it for tomorrow. There would ordinarily be a bio tomorrow because there's no new abnormality. You can think of this gameplay session as the extended bio of Abnormality Bird, because it's a bit of a doozy. It's a big fight, and there's a lot going on. Basically, everyone is moving into their positions for the fight. Also, literally all the gameplay footage is of the fight, pretty much. After the fight starts. It is a tough fight, and it lasts for a while, especially because we're a bit under-geared for it. Also, it did take me 6 failures before my 7th attempt was successful. Those attempts are completely cut out of the video because they were not really great to watch. They were just me screwing up something and then everyone dying, basically. And I mean, I just figured it was basically the same thing over and over again, and they were like, these recordings are long, and excuses. they weren't really interesting losses, at least to me, so I decided to cut them out. And since I am pretty invested in this game, I decided to leave it out. So Apocalypse Bird can cause meltdowns. That is the reason why I've stationed several employees in the hallways. You'll see this during the fight, but it's important to have your trouble abnormalities completely unable to breach during this, because there's already enough going on already with just Apocalypse Bird. That's the name of the bird event, by the way. I kind of spoiled it. Right now we're setting up Big Bird to get to Cool Thought level 1, so when 5 clerks die, it'll breach. And everyone else is moving into the positions. We have 2 people in safety, 2 people in welfare, 4 people in control, central. And not counting Goom, who is sitting outside of Little Red's hallway, just to fight Little Red over and over. So technically 5. But 2 people in central are going to move into disciplinary at one point during the fight. It's just because I have a plan for dealing with Clouded Monk that requires them not being a disciplinary. Because Clouded Monk is almost certainly going to breach during the fight. Because it's the Clerk's right abnormalities, and Clerks are going to die today. I could progress the day long enough so I could just execution bullet all the Clerks in the building, and therefore none of them would breach, but that's not really worth it. This is the Rabbit Protocol menu, new upgrade we unlocked. It's just, you can see all the account of all the agents and clerks in the building with it. And more importantly, clicking on departments with it allows you to summon the rabbits to them. You can only order the rabbits once per day, and each department costs 25% of your current energy. Unless you do Central as one of the departments, Central counts as 2 departments, so it would be 50% of your current energy to summon them to Central. You cannot go over 100% with the rabbits. In general, I'll normally summon them to one place though, so whatever. They will kill your employees and clerks as well as the abnormalities they're fighting, so you better not have employees or clerks in departments or going into the departments where you summon them. Big Bird is basically about ready to be breached. We're sending a Goom to mess with Judgment Bird as well. The basic plan for letting out Apocalypse Bird quickly is get Big Bird down to Quothoth level 1, and then breach Judgment Bird, because Judgment Bird kills clerks fast because it does pale damage to an entire room. It's especially easy if Judgment Bird is in Central, because Central has 20 clerks instead of 10. Because it's basically 2 departments stapled together. B's moving into the giant pile all the fighters are moving to. Goom is not in that pile despite having the best weapon, because that pile is going into fight something that absorbs pale damage. Therefore, Goom had to have some separate job. Originally, he was going to fight a separate part of the fight, but then I realized I need someone to deal with Little Red Riding Hood because she's going to breach. So Goom's doing that, which is something he's probably used to doing, but whatever. He did not succeed in getting Judgment Bird to breach, despite repressing it, which it hates. All the birds hate repression because, well, if you pay attention to the lore of Apocalypse Bird, you'll probably figure it out. But there is a lore complicit reason for this. Right now it's just downtime, preparing for the fight. It's a bit stressful, because it's pretty chaotic, as you'll see, during the actual first section of the fight. And yet, Judgment Bird still hasn't breached. It literally does not normally take this long to have it do it. Normally it only takes 2 works. Goom has done it in 4. Good job not getting bads, but you're supposed to get bads. I think repression is like a 20% or 0% success rate. It's pretty ridiculous how low it is. That's base, by the way, so I'm impressed that Goom's doing a good job, but also, you're supposed to let it out intentionally. So bad job, me. And it still isn't out. It's ridiculous. But yeah, dumb stuff sometimes happens. And I can't really explain further than that. The reward for beating this fight is super good. That's the main reason I'm doing it at all. If there wasn't a great reward for this, even though it counts for the Gebura's mission, I would probably just ignored the birds and not treated them specially. But the reward for this is ridiculously powerful, and I am pretty glad we got the birds because of that. Judgment Bird finally breached. He's running around in Central killing clerks now. As soon as 5 clerks die, Big Bird will also breach, and because 2 of the birds are breaching at once, the bird event will finally start, / the Apocalypse Bird event. The Apocalypse Bird event involves these slides, they just appear as the event progresses. So first, once the second bird breaches, the third bird instantly breaches as well. Because Punishing Bird doesn't lower Little Red's Quothoth counter, she's still not out yet, but as soon as something else breaches, she will be. So all the birds are marching to something right now. You can't see it because it's off screen, because I was watching Big Bird eat some clerks. Big Bird will eat clerks that are in the way, he does not eat agents that are in the way, thankfully. It is a one-hit kill, like his attack is normally. Small Bird has arrived at the destination. And I still have not focused on it. Basically, it's just a giant door called the Portal to the Black Forest that opens up at a random department. And all the birds are walking to it. It takes a bit for the fight to start because Big Bird takes forever to get there because he's very slow, and also he stops to kill every single clerk he passes by. But if you noticed in safety, there's the Portal to the Black Forest. And Judgment Bird has entered. Well, as soon as Big Bird enters, the Apocalypse Bird fight starts. And he's still just eating clerks. He's taken so long, the first warning music stopped entirely. By the way, the reason why I said that it counts as 5 Alephs, the door counts as an Aleph abnormality for some reason. The door that spawns in. That is the first Aleph abnormality that will be suppressed by this, because as soon as all 3 spawn in, the door disappears, and I believe it is considered suppressed, although I never actually double-checked that. Because, again, distracted by extremely chaotic fight. And Big Bird finally enters safety, panicking literally every single clerk in safety. And entering the door. Now that all 3 birds are in the door, Apocalypse Bird finally spawns in. This is the first breaching Aleph we've seen. It's also the second hardest one. Oops. Actually, it's the first Aleph we've seen at all. You have to think of it. Judgment Bird is, wah. He just gives left gear. So, 3 eggs spawn into the facility. All 3 of them spawn in the upper layer. There's long arms, small beak, and big eyes. All 3 of these eggs have a single effect. And right now, the highest priority target by far is long arms. If you notice, he just did a pale attack that hits the entire facility. That's the first thing long arms lets it do. The second thing is, while long arms is alive, you cannot pause. That is extremely annoying. And it means that long arms egg must be dealt with ASAP. Because he can also spawn meltdowns. But that was not a meltdown, that was just he finally killed enough clerks for Clouded Monk to breach. So the basic plan to deal with Clouded Monk's breach is just leave it to the rabbits, but more complicated than that, I want to make sure most of the clerks are dead so before I call in the rabbits so that it can't breach again. So we're just gonna hope he doesn't, he's satisfied staying in disciplinary for a while. Because if he moves out of it, I'm kinda screwed. And luckily that hadn't happened in any of my attempts so far, so I was feeling pretty confident he would stay there. In general, as long as there are some clerks alive, abnormalities don't wander too far from where they spawn from, just because they tend to get distracted with killing clerks. Goomp cannot solo Little Red without red shields. He needs them, and so I can't pay too much attention to the other fights that are ongoing. But I also need to be careful because Apocalypse Bird's Big Eyes is the second highest priority target for its incredibly dangerous attack. It will force employees to walk to it. If you're not paying attention, this will easily result in Apocalypse Bird killing most of your fighters because Apocalypse Bird is completely invincible. The only way to kill it is to kill all 3 of its eggs. And every single egg does count as a left level abnormality. Which is why this works for Gebura's mission. There's a meltdown happening on Snow White's apple. We cannot let this finish because if it does, we will be screwed by her. Basically, we can't. It's already tough enough for me to deal with this, and it's just Apocalypse Bird doing his stuff with the Big Eyes egg. The Long Arms egg attack isn't really a high priority threat. It's really just the Big Eyes egg that's dangerous. But Long Arms is finally down, so we can pause. But just because Long Arms is down, we're not out of the water yet. So many Abnormalities are about to breach. Luckily, I was able to catch Void Dream before it breaches. Void Dream's sleep bullets actually would screw me over a lot if it managed to breach. Because hitting the people who are meant to fight and making them fall asleep is just bad news. I'm already having enough trouble, and it's just a Apocalypse Bird calling them to it. I'm moving the entire fight team into this hallway. Big Eyes absorbs black damage, so the fight team has to be slightly divided in order to fight Big Eyes. Luckily, this just means we have more agents to throw at melting down abnormalities. Or we could use the ones who deal black damage to fight Small B, but I don't really think of that for a bit. It is what I end up doing, though. Spireel finally reached Apocalypse Bird, all the way from Central, and the rabbits are called in to deal with Clouded Monk. There's also one clerk in Disciplinary. They will get shot to death by rabbits. Spireel's working with Porcupus. I could deal with Porcupus's breach pretty easily, it's just that the less things that are breaching, the better for my sanity. And also, the more things that breach, the more little reds there are. And if too many little red breaches happen, I will run out of shield bullets and Goom will die. Which is pretty unlikely to happen because it only takes like 3 for him to deal with her, but it's still a possibility. We're dealing with DRV just because letting DRV run around is bad. I in general don't want to let wall level abnormalities just run through my facility at doing whatever they feel like. Also, if we deal with DRV, because we can actually pause now, we can Gebura gets melt on if it pops up again. So that's why the Apocalypse Bird fight team is fighting DRV and not Apocalypse Bird right now. Can you tell that I'm a bit nervous because this is by far my best attempt out of the 7 by this point. Right now, if you notice Apocalypse Bird in safety, it's performing its attack that draws employees to it. It's based off of Big Bird's method of fighting, because all of his attacks draw from the abnormality they're based off of. It hits. All the Small Bird Egg does is allow it to use a red damage attack that isn't really super dangerous in the first place, so it does like 60 to 70 red damage, I think. And it can hit multiple employees, but in general you don't want employees hanging around the area where it is anyway. It doesn't really mess with your entire facility like the Long Arms and Big Eyes do, so it is by far the least heavy priority target. It absorbs red damage, by the way. Long Arms absorbs pale, Big Eyes absorbs black, Small Beak absorbs red. They all absorb the type of damage they're associated with. This is why the Rabbit team can't really deal with the eggs, because I don't really explain what the Rabbit team does when I called them in. They're done right now, by the way. But when they spawn in, they basically do an even amount of damage for all the damage types. So, because it absorbs them at double the rate you would do, it's not the rabbits cannot really effectively deal with the eggs. It takes way too long. Basically, everyone in the fight team who does red or white is fighting Big Eyes right now. It takes a bit to issue those orders because I just sort through them manually. Goom is still fighting Little Red, and he will not move on to fight Big Eyes, even though it is weak to pale, or weaker to pale. I don't think it's actually weak to pale, just because he has to deal with her, and she very easily could breach again. And First Trumpet is a good song. You don't really hear the trumpet songs too often. I'm a bit glad that, because of all the breaches today, I got to hear them a lot. But, heck, in one of the failed attempts I even heard Third Trumpet, because everyone in the facility died. I did cut that footage completely because it wasn't really worth it, but Third Trumpet's a good song, you should look it up. I'd have to go hear it in the Let's Play. Just because this should be the hardest thing I do that would be able to play Third Trumpet. There are some suppressions that I consider harder than this, but they don't play the trumpet songs right now. Little Red goes down, again. Second time during this one fight. And now that basically everything that happened while Longbird was alive has been dealt with, you can finally focus on Big Eyes and Small Beak. Everything that's melting down isn't like a super high threat we're just ignoring, by the way. the reason why there are 2 employees in Central is literally just to work on both of them are together to work on Dreaming Current, just because Dreaming Current's breach is one I'm not very good at dealing with. It's not even that difficult. It doesn't have a lot of HP, it dies really fast, and it marks where it'll go. I'm just really bad at dealing with that one. It's similar to Big Birds in that I am impatient and bad at dealing with things that will just require going in and out a lot. I mean, I don't remember if I cut it or not, but even in the practice attempt at Big Bird, even though I know exactly how it works, it's very easy to do Big Bird without any death. Someone still died during the Big Bird attempt. Because it can't do its scale attack anymore, it will do its luring employees to attack more often. It lost its scale attack when Long Arms died. It will lose the lure employees attack when Big Eyes dies. It will also lose its red attack when Small Beak dies. But in general, once Big Eyes is down, the fight's pretty much over. We're having some minor FPS issues, but pretty typical of Lobotomy Corp for that to happen. Especially when there's a thing that's using a lot of effects and app breachings and meltdowns at once, like Apocalypse Bird event. I mean, I wish the game wasn't like this, but it just is. So whatever employee that was, I think it's around here. It should be soon, right? I finally realized that I should be fighting Small Beak at the same time as Big Eyes. You do want to kill Big Eyes before Small Beak, optimally, just because of, what's the word? Its attack limit, its attacks. Losing Small Beak's attack would just mean it does the lure employees towards an attack more often. That is by far its most dangerous attack, because it interrupts you fighting it. And it also interrupts your ability to work on the meltdowns it spawns. That's the reason I have people doubling up, by the way, is just because of its lure attack. It should hopefully make it so that departments always have someone available to work on a meltdown. Safety isn't really doubled up to work on DRV. DRV is not a super high threat. They're doubled up to work on Nameless Fetus. Because since all the clerks are going to die during the fight, pretty much, Nameless Fetus will only be able to select employees if its closeout counter hits 0. And, or I have to deal with while I finish the day after I deal with the Apocalypse Bird event, I have to deal with DRV and Pode constantly breaching, and I don't want to do that. I probably could, it's just not worth it. B has been ensorcelled by Apocalypse Bird for like forever now. And so has Corbinian. They're basically just been wandering the halls. Luckily, the Grave of Cherry Blossoms is another one I can't let finish melting down, because it will grab 5 agents basically since all the clerks are dead and force them to walk towards it. In general, it's kind of a balancing act of make sure all the crap that I have that forces agents to walk towards them or fall asleep doesn't go off. I also really desperately cannot let Big Bad and Will Beowulf breach, because his breach is really annoying to deal with, and also it would make this even harder to do. Corbinian's finally made it to Apocalypse Bird, so she can walk back to safety. By safety I mean welfare, but she will be safe there. You can't move the camera while the shake effect is going on, even though the game's paused. I'm assuming it's just the way that it's programmed to interact with the camera. It's kind of annoying, though. But we've officially advanced on Small Beak as well. When Big Eyes goes down, it will spawn Meltdowns more often because it has less attacks it can choose from. Spawning Meltdowns is one of his attacks. It essentially just chooses from one every few seconds. I don't know the exact way it works. But and then after a bit, it teleports to a random room. Mr. Black has finally reached Apocalypse Bird so he can fight some Big Eyes. Although his weapon barely does anything because it kind of sucks. But again, we want to minimize the amount of time our employees spend next to Apocalypse Bird, so yeah. Big Guys goes down anyway, so he wouldn't have been able to help. I don't know how exactly, if we go to one-shot Mr. Black, he is wearing Teth armor and it's no left. I don't want to take the, I'm really worried about the risk, so I just leave him in that hallway, I believe. And then from here, the white damagers move in on Small Beak, and the red damagers stay behind. Because Small Beak absorbs red, as I stated earlier. But from here, the fight's basically over. It can't call any new employees towards it. The ones who are still hypnotized will still walk towards it, but there's not many of them. There's Jong Seng Min or whatever his name is, finally making his way towards it. And there's nothing melting down right now. We're in a pretty good spot. The fight's basically over by this point. We just have to finish off Small Beak. In general, the Apocalypse Bird fight is often just kill big long arms before there's too much crap going on, because it's like nearly impossible to react to all the stuff it throws at you without pausing. I'm sure there's been someone who's able to beat Apocalypse Bird killing long arms last, but they're probably way better geared out than I am. We still have people in Teth armor, as a reminder. It is kind of ridiculous doing this fight with this little gear. We only have one set of LF armor, but we're about to get our second. As a reward for completing the event, Apocalypse Bird drops a set of LF armor and a set of LF weapon. There's associated with Apocalypse Bird, basically. There are a few weapons and armor you get from suppressing abnormalities. Apocalypse Bird's is one of them. And I'll show it off in the next episode, but it is very, very good. I'll leave it at that for now. Another little lag spike. It's to be expected. This game has a memory leak bug, there's a lot going on. But it's about over. The frame rate will return to normal when the fight's over. Although I cut all the footage of the game being played with normal frame rate, because you've seen me do just justice training before, and that's what it essentially boiled down to after that. And also because the video is already long enough, leaving in the Apocalypse Bird fight. That's the main reason why. But Small Beak goes down, and with that, so does Apocalypse Bird. The fight is finally over, and no one died somehow. I was actually starting to get convinced when I started this attempt that if like one person died, I would just leave them dead, like I did with not Kim Dae-ri, whoever it was that died. Actually, it was Kim Dae-ri. I was gonna say not Lee. I was gonna say Lee Chang, but he's a survivor. Goom's moving in to deal with Scarecrow once it breaches, but other than that, everything else is dealt with. Everyone got a special gift for surviving too. That wing through the dark twilight. It gives them +7 to every single stat. It's very, very good. I love it. If it was just the gift, I wouldn't consider the event worth it, but again, it's not just the gift. It is also a very strong weapon and very good armor. We can move everyone back to their departments now that the Apocalypse Bird fight is over. We do need, you could just leave them like they were, but we need people to deal with the ordeals. We're not recalling training because all the training people are spread out to where I want them, basically. So we move up Marie to training, and black hair, whose name I can't remember, one of the custom agents, one of the last people ensorcelled by Apocalypse Bird. That guy. He's wearing Scarecrow armor right now. Marie needs to farm for Punishing Bird's necklace, so he does that off screen, and then everyone else does just his training. Because she's the only one close to fitting the stat requirements for Apocalypse Bird's equipment, she just needs to get Porcubus's eco gift off of her. And Punishing Bird also has the necklace slot gift, so... and it's a test, so it's a 5% drop each time. That's why I chose to farm for Punishing Bird's gifts. But other than that, just a bit more training before the day ends. Ordeals did nothing of note. They just existed. With that, the Apocalypse Bird fight is finally over. I gotta say, it's a bit of a headache, but it was really relieving when the big eyes finally went down. And with that, Apocalypse Bird is finally dealt with, and there were no casualties in the successful attempt, which is nice. Alright, buddy, everyone has a new fancy wing, and we've had some stat growth, which I'm not really going to focus too much on. It was just basically justice growth at the end of the day, because it's nice. Just dedicated all the post Apocalypse Bird stuff that I probably cut out of the video too. There's no new abnormality today, but that doesn't really matter because we didn't work with the new one from yesterday at all. So we'll just get the information from that tomorrow, even though you know how it works by now. I'm just happy I was able to do it with our gear. We were a bit under-geared for Apocalypse Bird, seeing as how we have one left set that was busy being used to suppress Little Red Riding Hood the entire time, so I'm glad we were able to pull out of it. And now it is time for Apocalypse Bird lore. Known to come when the world is filled with sin, many employees fear the advent of this abnormality. To talk about this bird, we need to first tell the story of the Black Forest. We must remember the forest that was once so peaceful and beautiful, and the apocalypse shall follow. Once upon a time, 3 happy birds lived in a warm and lush forest. The birds had no name. The creatures of the forest would call them Big Bird, Long Bird, and Small Bird. Everyone lived freely and happily together in the peaceful forest. The birds wanted the forest to be safe more than anyone else. That way creatures from the outside could visit and have fun. It was a warm and sunny afternoon when a stranger visited the peaceful forest. He was a traveler, pioneer, and prophet, but at the same time, he was a nobody. He wanted to enter the forest, but the birds found him suspicious, so they didn't let him in. The stranger, angered, turned the birds as he left. Soon a tragedy will befall the forest. It will be tainted with misdeeds and evil, and there will be constant conflict. The tragedies will only stop when a terrible beast appears and devours everything. The sun and moon will shine upon the forest no longer. The forest will never go back to what it was before. The birds are worried about the prophecy. What if conflicts really break out and a beast shows up to harm the forest just like the man said? That's when the birds decided to become the guardians of the forest. They loved this forest more than anybody else did, so they wanted to protect the creatures living in the forest and keep the peace. Big Bird, with its many eyes, decided to watch over the forest for intruders. For Big Bird's eyes could see very far, and see things we cannot see. Then somebody said, "But what if the beast shows up in the middle of the night, when the sky is dark and everyone is asleep?" Worried, Big Bird burned all of its feathers to make an everlasting lamp. Now the creatures of the forest were under Big Bird's constant watch, day and night. To keep the forest's peace, Long Bird weighed the sins of those who entered the forest, for Long Bird's scale was fair and just, and could weigh any and all kinds of sin. Then somebody said, "But what if the scale doesn't tip in either direction someday?" Worried, Long Bird made a scale that always tipped to one side. That way, every judgment would yield a clear verdict. Small Bird decided to punish the creature's wrongdoings with its beak. Then somebody said, "But your beak is so small, no one would find it hurtful." Worried, Small Bird tore its beak wide so it could swallow any creature in one bite. No one could visit the forest anymore, and bad rumors about the forest began to spread outside. I heard terrible things happen to any creature that enters the forest. The Big Bird is always watching the creatures of the forest. There's no freedom. The Long Bird's scale isn't fair at all. The Small Bird's punishment is so scary. The birds got upset. "We work so hard to protect the forest. Why doesn't anyone appreciate our effort?" Fewer and fewer visitors came to the forest, and more creatures were complaining. Fights broke out daily, and yet the birds continued to work even harder to make the forest peaceful again, but... No, this forest is so vast and wide, the 3 of us aren't enough to protect all of it. But there is no creature to protect this forest but us. If we combined our power, we would be stronger. The day when Big Bird's eyes that could see hundreds of kilometers away, Long Bird who could judge any sin, and Small Bird's mouth that could devour everything united into one, darkness fell upon the forest. Creatures screamed in terror and fear at the sight of the bird, and the forest soon fell into mayhem. Then, in the middle of all the chaotic cries, someone shouted, "It's the beast! A big scary monster lives in the black dusky forest! The beast is here?" The 3 birds, now as one, looked around, but there was no one to be seen. The bird began to prowl the forest looking for the beast. The forest would be in trouble if the beast really showed up. But there was nothing. There were no creatures, no sun and moon, and no beast. All that was left was a bird in the black forest. Since then, there are only nights dark as pitch. Rumor says that there is a terrible beast in the Black Forest where no one lives. Survivor testimony. Every single light in the facility went crazy. They kept flickering, I could even use my lighter. Then, this warm light shone through it all. It looked like a waning twilight, or a glowing sunrise. Though, as we all know, sunlight can't make its way into our facility. Everyone silently gazed at the light. Sudden darkness and a weird ray of light were enough reason to be frightened. It was scarier than anything gory we'd seen here. It was a true fear of the unknown itself. Something from afar was coming our way. Incandescent lights like stars from outer space were marching towards us. It looked like a big bird's eyes, but it wasn't that abnormality. I could hear those long arms scratching the floor. Then, someone broke the silence with a whisper. That guy over there couldn't run away in time. There was an employee kneeling on the floor. Perhaps he couldn't sense the danger approaching behind him, and once he noticed, it was too late. He couldn't even scream. Nobody would have been able to then. He just meaninglessly struggled to move his legs, desperate to run from the beast. There was no heroic act of someone standing up against the monster, not even a yell to warn him. Everyone was just watching him, waiting for that terrible thing that was about to happen. Each step sent a tremor through the whole facility. The monster was moving with such slow steps, but it seemed so fast. In the blink of an eye, it devoured the nameless employee in one bite, and right after that everyone started screaming in chaos. I'd gone through handling countless suppressions, but that day, for the first time, I regretted ever joining the company. I was certain I wouldn't get out of there alive. This hopelessness overwhelmed me. I couldn't even think about fighting it back against the monster. Many others were feeling the same. I think they only stayed sane enough not to write all this amongst the survivors. The company will never tell our newbies about the existence of that monster. However, I wanted to leave them a warning at the very least. That's why I'm writing this. What a beautiful story.